there were franchises that I could have put up that same $330,000 to get into, where I could have made 2, 3, 4 times the amount of profit that I was making in what I did wind up choosing. And the reason why I missed out on making that extra 2, 3, 4 times of profit was because how do you find the right franchise with confidence? Let's dive in. Well, number one is you need to use a proven process, right? And so here's the analogy and the example. Oh, and by the way, before I explain that, so the way that I learned this was when my wife and I signed our first franchise agreement in 2015. Guess what we did not do? We did not use a proven process. I pretty much had a very flawed way of thinking of how to find the right franchise for me. I didn't know there were over 4,000 franchises. I didn't know which ones made money. I didn't know all of the different industries that franchises were in. Here was my thought process. We got to do something we really enjoy because I'm already busy and we really like making juices and smoothies at home. So, seems like that could be a good idea. Now, I did have some elements of this proven process, but overall, that was just my mindset. There was no proven process to buying the right franchise. So here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. So here's what happened. We spent $330,000 to get a franchise open. Okay, was the franchise successful? Yes, we made money. We eventually sold that location, and that location performed well for us. But we invested $330,000 to get that franchise open, right? And so what I learned later on was that there were franchises that I could have put up that same $330,000 to get into, where I could have made 2, 3, 4 times the amount of profit that I was making in what I did wind up choosing. And the reason why I missed out on making that extra 2, 3, 4 times of profit was because I did not follow a proven process. So as we started owning our franchises and as I started learning more and more about franchising, talking to franchise owners, learning how you go about selecting the process, that's how I created some of the methodology that we're going to go over tonight. All right. So, as an example, when you go to buy a house, most of us here either live in a house, own a house, maybe an apartment, condo, whatever it is. But when you go buy a house, like you don't probably just don't go wandering randomly down the streets. You're like, all right, we want to go buy a house, and so we're going to go walk down the road, just knocking on doors, asking if people's houses are available, or just looking for sale signs, right? No, the proven process when buying a house is you would either first you identify your criteria, right? You identify what is your criteria for buying a house. Hey, do we want a 3 bedroom? Do we want 4 bedrooms? How many bathrooms do we want? Do we want something that doesn't have a backyard so we don't have to take care of it? Or do we want a backyard because we have kids? What sort of neighborhood do we want to be in? Do we want a pool, etc.? Right? Like obvious stuff. You start thinking of the criteria. And with that criteria in mind, when you go searching on Zillow and then or when you work with your realtor, right? Who did you guys know that apparently a realtor and real estate agents are like two different things? Realtors, a trademark term. Oh, what's that show? Is it Modern Family? Whatever that show is, where there's a whole segment on realtor versus real estate agent. Oh, I just thought about that. It's freaking hilarious. You'll have to look up that clip. It's really funny. It's a thing. Anyways, so but part of the proven process is working with a professional who can help you navigate the process and narrow down your search. Now, for me, I like going on Zillow and the sites, and I like looking on my own. I'm a control freak, but we still work with a realtor. But you're not the idea is you're once you start establishing your criteria, and again, this is all relating to franchising. I'm going to tie this in on how this relates to you finding the right franchise and how you find a winning franchise. But you need the context is important, right? So once you set your criteria, what happens is you go from let's say 1,000 houses in let's say a 5 mile radius, whatever it is, to all of a sudden there's, 20 houses for sale in your area that meet your specific criteria. Makes the process much less overwhelming. And so what I find is over the last year, last couple of years, I've personally spoken to over 1,000 franchise buyers personally, right? Um, and so what I've learned is that people don't have a criteria. When I ask them, "Hey, what's your what's your criteria on buying a franchise?" And they give me the most vague answers that I've ever heard of in my life. So it's like, well, no wonder you've been searching for a year, 2 years, not able to find the right franchise. So the first thing you need to do is to establish your criteria. That's step number 1. You need to get as much clarity as possible on what it is that you want. If you enjoyed this short clip from the podcast, you can check out another short clip right here. Or if you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, you can watch that here. And remember, knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge that's power. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.